There are 7 stars in our galaxy that shouldn't exist. 7 stars that break the laws of physics. 7 stars that force astronomers to use words like impossible and unexplainable. Right now, as you're watching this, teams of scientists are desperately trying to prove these aren't what they look like, massive alien structures harvesting the power of entire suns. In 2015, astronomer Tabby discovered something that made her question everything she knew about stars. KIC 8,462,852, now called Tabby's star, was dimming in ways that violated every model, every theory, every natural explanation we had. Not by the 1% a planet might cause, not by the 5% a massive dust cloud could create, but by 22%, nearly a quarter of an entire star's light gone. Then back. Then gone again, in patterns so complex they looked designed. The scientific community had 2 choices: admit we might be looking at alien megastructures, or find any other explanation, no matter how unlikely. They chose option 2. But here's what they won't say publicly: the natural explanations make less sense than aliens. And Tabby star? It's not alone. There are others. Stars doing things that nature shouldn't allow. Stars that might be evidence we're not the only intelligence in the galaxy, we're just the most primitive. Let me take you back to 1960. Physicist Freeman Dyson publishes a paper that changes how we think about advanced civilizations. He asks a simple question: what would a civilization millions of years ahead of us actually look like? His answer was terrifying in its logic. They wouldn't waste energy beaming it uselessly into space like we do. They'd capture it. All of it. Imagine a structure that surrounds an entire star, a sphere, a swarm, a ring of collectors, capturing every photon of energy. From Earth, we wouldn't see the star anymore. We'd see something else. Something that dims irregularly as massive structures pass between us and the stellar surface. Something that radiates excess heat in infrared wavelengths. Something that looks artificial because it is artificial. Dyson called them spheres, but they wouldn't be solid shells. They'd be swarms, millions, billions of individual collectors, solar panels the size of planets, orbiting in complex patterns that maximize energy capture. And here's the part that should chill you: if they exist, we should be able to see them. In fact, we might already be looking right at them. Enter Tabby's star, 1,470 light-years away in the constellation Cygnus. When the Kepler Space Telescope stared at it for 4 years, it recorded something unprecedented. The star's brightness dropped by up to 22%. That's like something the size of Jupiter multiplied by 20 passing in front of it. But it wasn't a single object. The dimming came in complex, irregular patterns, different depths, different durations, no periodicity that matches any known celestial mechanics. The first explanation was comets, maybe a massive cloud of them, but comets produce dust, and dust creates specific infrared signatures. Tabby's star showed none. Next theory, a planetary collision, debris everywhere. But that would create symmetrical dimming patterns. Tabby's star's dips were chaotic, complex, almost as if it were orchestrated. Then came the alien megastructure hypothesis. What if we were watching a partial Dyson swarm under construction? Massive collectors being positioned, tested, activated. It would explain the irregular dimming. The lack of infrared excess, advanced technology, might be incredibly efficient. The complex patterns, construction doesn't follow natural orbital mechanics. The scientific community reacted exactly as you'd expect. They attacked the alien hypothesis with desperate creativity. Maybe it's not comets, but a shattered moon. Maybe it's not dust, but microscopic particles that don't emit infrared. Maybe it's intrinsic variability, the star itself doing something we've never seen before. Anything but aliens. But then Dr. Bradley Schaefer looked at historical data. Harvard has photographic plates of the night sky dating back to 1890. Over the past century, Tabby's star has dimmed by 14%. Not fluctuated, steadily dimmed. No known natural process does this to a main sequence star. Unless something has been systematically increasing its coverage of the star. Building, expanding, growing. Jason Wright, the astronomer who first seriously proposed the megastructure hypothesis, put it bluntly, aliens should always be the last hypothesis you consider. But this looked like something you would expect an alien civilization to build. And then we found more. Przybylski's star, just 370 light-years away, might be even stranger than Tabby's. This star contains elements that shouldn't exist. Not just rare, physically impossible. Elements like promethium, neptunium, and plutonium. These are radioactive elements, with half-lives so short they should decay within years, not persist in a star that's millions of years old. The only way these elements could exist in Przybylski's star is if something is creating them continuously. The proposed natural explanation? That somehow, unknown stellar processes are manufacturing artificial elements. The alternative explanation that no one wants to discuss? That someone is using the star as a nuclear furnace, deliberately creating heavy elements for industrial purposes we can't imagine. Think about that. An entire star converted into a factory. Its nuclear fires harnessed not just for energy, but for matter creation. The ultimate alchemy on a stellar scale. Then there's epic 204,278,916, a pre-main sequence star surrounded by what should be a simple protoplanetary disk. Except the disk isn't simple. It shows dimming patterns that last exactly 25 days, with depths reaching 65%. The leading theory is that we're watching planets form. But the models don't work. The dimming is too regular, too deep, too artificial. What if it's not planets forming, but structures being deployed? A young star being enclosed before it even fully ignites. A civilization so advanced they begin harvesting stars before they're born. The 25-day period could be construction phases. The 65% dimming could be massive panels being tested, positioned, calibrated. VVVWIT07 dimmed by 80% for no apparent reason. A1407 shows ring structures that would make Saturn look like a pebble, rings so vast they'd stretch from the Sun to Earth. HD 139,139 shows 28 identical dimming events that match no known physics. Each could be natural. All of them together start to paint a different picture. Here's what truly unsettles me: the politics of discovery. In 2016, when the alien hypothesis for Tabby's star gained media attention, the scientific backlash was swift and brutal. Not because the hypothesis was wrong, it wasn't, but because it was dangerous. Dangerous to careers. Dangerous to funding. Dangerous to the careful facade of scientific respectability. Dr. Tabitha Boyajian herself was forced to repeatedly distance herself from the alien hypothesis, despite admitting the data was really weird and matched no natural phenomena. Why? Because in astronomy, suggesting aliens is career suicide. You become the UFO scientist, your papers get rejected, your funding disappears. Your colleagues whisper at conferences, so we get increasingly absurd natural explanations. Tabby's star must be microscopic dust arranged in impossible configurations. Przybylski's star, unknown nuclear physics that only happens there. Epic 204,278,916, the most precisely timed natural phenomenon in the universe. Each explanation more unlikely than aliens, but safer for careers. The Drake equation suggests there should be millions of advanced civilizations in our galaxy. The Fermi paradox asks where they are. What if the answer is staring us in the face? What if they're not hiding, they're just so advanced we don't recognize them? A civilization with a million-year head start wouldn't build cities we'd recognize. They'd build stellar engines. They wouldn't send radio signals, they'd communicate with gravity waves or dimensions we haven't discovered. They wouldn't visit us in flying saucers, they'd be the stars themselves. Intelligence merged with cosmic machinery on scales we can barely imagine. Carl Sagan once said that any sufficiently advanced technology would be indistinguishable from nature. What if he was wrong? What if it's distinguishable, we just refuse to distinguish it? What if every anomalous star, every impossible spectrum, every violation of our models is exactly what it appears to be, evidence of intelligence reshaping the cosmos? Consider the implications if even one of these stars hosts alien megastructures. It means civilizations can survive long enough to build them. It means intelligence naturally expands to cosmic scales. It means we're surrounded by evidence of our future, if we survive, or evidence of what watches us, quietly, from structures vast enough to swallow worlds. But there's a darker possibility. What if these structures aren't just collecting energy? What if they're weapons? Nickel Dyson beams could focus a star's entire output into a laser that could sterilize planets across the galaxy. What if we're not seeing power plants, but gun barrels? What if the irregular dimming isn't construction, but targeting adjustments? Or, worse, what if they're not structures at all, but life forms, beings that have transcended biology and become living stellar engineering? Intelligence that exists as patterns in stellar plasma, thoughts carried on solar winds, consciousness spanning astronomical units. To them, we wouldn't be a civilization. We'd be bacteria on a pebble, too small to notice, too primitive to communicate with. The most recent observations of Tabby's star show the dimming continues. The patterns grow more complex. The star itself may be changing colors slightly, something that should take millions of years happening in decades. Whatever's happening there, it's accelerating. In 2024, the James Webb Space Telescope turned its instruments toward these anomalous stars. The data is still being analyzed, but leaks suggest we've found more questions than answers. Chemical signatures that shouldn't exist. Temperature variations that violate thermodynamics, structures in the stellar coronas that look almost geometric, almost purposeful. The scientific papers use careful language. Anomalous spectral features, non-periodic variability, challenges to current models, never aliens, never intelligence, never the obvious conclusion that these stars are doing impossible things because something impossible is being done to them. So I ask you, how many stars in our sky aren't really stars anymore? How many points of light have been transformed into something else, machines, beings, weapons, or technologies we can't conceive? When you look up at night, are you seeing nature, or are you seeing the evidence of civilizations that conquered nature billions of years ago? The universe contains 2 trillion galaxies. Each galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars. If even 0.0001% of them have been altered by intelligence, that's still billions of Dyson spheres, billions of stellar engines, billions of monuments to civilizations that make our greatest achievements look like anthill. And we've found 7 that we can't explain. 7 that force us to use words like impossible. 7 that might be trying to tell us something profound. We're not alone, we're not first, and we're not looking at empty space, we're looking at cosmic infrastructure we're too primitive to understand. The next time someone tells you we haven't found evidence of alien life, remember Tabby's star dimming in patterns that make no sense. Remember Przybylski Star burning with impossible elements. Remember that the universe doesn't have to make sense to us, it just has to make sense to whoever's engineering it. Because if these are alien megastructures, if we're seeing cosmic engineering on stellar scales, then the universe isn't empty, it's full. Fuller than we ever imagined. And we're just now developing eyes good enough to see it. If the possibility of stellar-scale engineering has expanded your concept of alien intelligence, check out some of our other investigations and discover what might be happening much closer to home. Subscribe for more journeys into cosmic mysteries that challenge everything we think we know. Next week, we examine the moon anomalies that have astronomers secretly worried. Until then, look up at the stars and ask yourself, how many of them are still just stars? And how many have become something else entirely?